Good morning, guys, and welcome back. It is 10:25 here in New York, Saturday, September 4th. And I woke up feeling very jarred because I was forced to receive the COVID-19 vaccination. I felt like I was coerced into it. I was like, somehow I just appeared. You know how like dreams just happen, right? It's like, sometimes there's really no beginning or ending. It's just like, boom, you're kind of plopped into the middle of something, right? And so I saw this white man. I didn't think that he had bad intentions, right? But out of nowhere, he pulled out the needle. And he pulled out the vaccine. And he grabbed my hand. Like, all this happened just so fast, right? He grabbed my hand, and I thought it was weird that he grabbed my hand, right, and not my arm. But he grabbed my hand, and then he just, like, forced the freaking vaccine. And, like, right here, it was, like, actually on this, my right hand. It's, like, right here. It was weird where he put it, but it was just, like, he inserted it, almost like as if he was giving me a piercing, right? He inserted it, and then immediately I felt changes happening throughout my body. And I was like, no. The setting was at my father's house, and my mom was there, my sister. It was weird, right? It's kind of weird, like, what? And they're all sitting around, and it was almost as if they had already gotten vaccinated, and I was the last to go. And they were trying to assuage my anxiety, my worry, because after this happened to me, where I was injected with this poison, like I said, I immediately noticed changes in my body. My arms began to have a reaction. And I noticed like a lump beginning to form in my left arm. It was like a big lump. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is happening to me. I felt like I was losing breath. Like I couldn't breathe. And my throat was swelling. And I heard someone say, rest in peace. And then I woke up. I'm like, thank God. Thank God. Thank God it's just a dream. Y'all guys don't know how relieved I felt when I woke up. But I also felt, I was like, when I woke up, I felt, what the hell? I actually kind of felt symptomatic in a way. I felt like I was sick. But I think it was just in my mind, though. And then those feelings went away. And I'm just like, they gave me the vaccine in my dream. It felt so real, yo. And then I checked my email, and I was a bit more relieved to see that this guy who I've been in conversation with via my videos, he responded. He responded to my video that I made on cuckolding in the UK yesterday. He responded an hour ago. Well, it says 8:36, right? Not technically an hour ago, but I think Gmail has to update the time. But it's actually, yeah, it was sent 8:36 a.m. And I believe the UK is, 5 hours ahead of us, right? So I am going to read his email. And I don't know if I have much to say, because I think his email that he sent me is much more of his reflection of what I said, integrated into what he already knows about himself. He seems to be a pretty transparent, honest, self-aware person, which that's good for him. It works in his favor, right? And I did read this email. Like I said, I read this email after I woke up from that terrifying freaking nightmare. So this was a bit of a fresh air. I'm like, okay, back to reality. Because that's definitely not my reality, yo. That fucking dream. I'm like, what the hell is this? I'm going to say more about that probably in another video. In terms of talking about consent. And so, yeah, this email was a breath of fresh air. Right? And so, let's read it. Oh, yeah. So, yeah, I read the email, like, kind of quickly, right? Just kind of scanned it, you know, because I'm kind of just waking up, still in my bed, and I read it. Because I always check my email. It's just like a ritual that I do every morning. Check my email. And, of course, check my bank account religiously, right? And so, just on first glance, after reading the email, right, I have to say, he has privilege. It kind of reminds me of, like, would I say white male privilege or just male privilege? I'll say male privilege, right? Male privilege. And all the times men don't think that they have privilege. But I'm going to explain why as when I read this email, right? He has privilege. As a man. And I know a lot of women say, oh, if I was a man, the things that I would do, right? All right, so let's go. Hello, Danielle. I just had a really pleasant surprise when I saw this afternoon that you referenced my previous emails to you on your video titled Pan-Africanism versus Interracial Cuckolding. Wait, sorry, hold on. Wrong one. Fast forward. All right. I already read that one in my previous video on cuckolding, the part 1. So this is the email that he just sent today in response to my video that I made yesterday. He says, good afternoon from England, Danielle. I have just watched your YouTube video titled Cuckolding in the UK. Again, I'm really flattered that you have chosen to critique and consider my current circumstances. My pleasures. Like, I feel grateful, right, that we're having this interaction because I get to hone my analytical skills, right? I like to engage in these types of conversations where people are insightful, they're open, they're transparent, they're willing to share. I like to do this in real life, okay? I know I come on live and do it on video, but I like to do this actually in real life with people. And believe it or not, yo, I be having conversations that be like 3-4 hours long sometimes on the phone. And guys be like, how? They don't even realize, like, how the fuck we on the phone this long? Lose absolute track of time. So I do this. But anyway. He says, I'm a person who was able to take my ego out of things and receive your analysis. I just turned on my AC. And I did just get out the shower. And so I feel a bit warm, obviously, because I'm covering up with this blanket, this Malian blanket. It's kind of thick. And it's, you know, the material really keeps you very warm. I'm using it not to cover up because I'm cold, but I'm using it to cover up because I'm wearing a dress. Like a knee-high dress, and so gotta be a lady. All right. So yeah, I do feel a bit warm, waiting for my AC to kick in. All right. I'm a person who was able to take my ego out of things and receive your analysis without being offended. I am not so much thick-skinned, despite my job. Now he says he's an attorney, and then at the end, initially, right. Several emails ago, he says that he is a human rights attorney, or solicitor as they call it in the UK. But then in this email, he changes it to defense attorney. I'm like, which one is it? I know that obviously he has an identity to protect. So maybe he's doing it out of confidentiality as he begins to go deeper in sharing his life, right? But nobody is not going to know who you are. I mean, unless you give more specific identifying information. I mean, he said he's 39 years old. He's a white man, and he has been in a relationship or an entanglement in a relationship with an Asian woman from Hong Kong. She's from Hong Kong. And it makes, I had one question. I'm trying to remember. Because I was thinking about this as I was going to sleep last night. And something popped up in my mind. Actually, it was a comment that was left from another viewer during my live video as I was making it. Right? And he said he wonders, which I also wondered too, made me think. Have you ever asked her what kind of man that she would be interested in cuckolding with, right? Perhaps no. That's a thought. But for him to change, for him to change his job title, right? I mean, he's an attorney, but for him to have to differentiate to say, oh, I am actually a defense attorney. Does that really make a difference? Why change it? Initially you say you're a human rights attorney. Now you're saying you're a defense attorney. Why change it? Because defense attorneys make more? Because defense attorney probably be more suitable to this type of character that you are giving us? More in alignment? Because I juxtapose this whole idea of you saying that you are a human rights attorney, yet it seems as though you are a bit cold towards her emotions and towards her feelings, right? Maybe you've cut yourself off. She's cut herself off, right? From her own emotions. She's detached from her own emotions, right? And that's as a byproduct of her culture. And then you are also kind of detached and removed from her emotions. And so perhaps it's more fitting to say that you are a defense attorney. Because it goes along with the character that you are putting out here. Defense attorneys are something else. I mean, defense attorneys are very manipulative. I'm kind of getting that sense, that vibe from you. That's their work, though. Psychologists have been known to be master manipulators, too. I admit, I'm definitely a master manipulator. Not really in a bad way, but it can be in a bad way, depending on how you look at it. I like that, I like that he is open to this discourse. I like that. In a way, it's kind of like building intimacy. I like that he's open to the discourse. Intimacy into himself, right? Being able to see into himself, and also intimacy with me and people who are watching. He says he's able to take his ego out of things and receive my analysis without being offended. He says, hold on though, hold on. Meanwhile, I am not so much thick-skinned despite my job and quite a deep thinker. Good. It's good to be in your thoughts. Sometimes it's to kind of about like setting your emotions aside. Not necessarily detaching though. You still feel your emotions, right? I'm sure you had maybe a visceral reaction as you're watching the video. You had some feelings that surface, but being mindful of those feelings that surface, being aware of it, right? Identifying, okay, what do you feel on the inside, but not necessarily allowing it to direct the course of your thought process, and being able to receive another person's perspective, you know, on your circumstances, right? That's a higher level type of thinking, I think. Because sometimes people, they get distracted, they get interrupted by their emotions. So let's say they get offended, they feel offended, they, you know, agitated, annoyed, they may feel, I don't know, disrespect, or they may feel misunderstood, or whatever they may feel, right? That triggers this emotion that's feeling within them, and then that feeling kind of just takes over, and they kind of shut down, right? And so then they're no longer able to engage in communication. This happens in relationships, right? And interactions with people. So I applaud him for being able to do this, because it's not easy. I don't think it's not easy. It's a skill. It's definitely a skill, but it's not easy. Perhaps some men are better at it than others, because men have been viewed as having a more logical mind. That whole right brain versus left brain theory, and you know, women have been viewed to be very emotional, being led and guided by our emotions. I don't know how true that is, though. But anywho, being a quite deep thinker, yes. However, I do recognize the need to acknowledge truths when receiving feedback, and not just dismiss it off because it may have offended my sense of identity or my line of thinking. Thumbs up. By the way, nothing which you said offended me in the slightest. It was entirely fair and balanced. I try to be. Now, I'm not into astrology, but for those who are astrology enthusiasts, right, I am a Libra. And so Libras have been known to seek balance, right? And in our seeking balance, the fault that we have within that character trait is we tend to be what, people pleasers, they say, or placaters, you know, don't want to offend people, just want to maintain a sense of harmony and balance. So maybe that's consistent with that. Maybe that's probably why, you know, what drives, you know, my democratic way of engaging with people. I don't know. I don't know if astrology holds much weight. A lot of psychologists, we don't really buy into astrology, though. It just seems like pseudoscience. But anyway, that's a tangent. All right. So, going on. He says, without being psychophantic. All right, listen. I'm going to have to Google, because I will admit if I don't know something. Psychophant. It's a modern English term. Person who acts obsequiously toward someone important in order to gain advantage. Wait, it says the word has its origin in the legal system of classical Athens. But in modern English, psychophant denotes an insincere flatterer and is used to refer to someone practicing psychophancy. Sycophancy. I don't know if I'm pronouncing it correctly. Without being psychophantic or patronizing to you. Listen, why do you have to preface your statement with that? It's like a defense mechanism, right? People will say, oh, I don't mean to be rude. I don't mean to be offensive. Because you know you about to do that, right? Just do it. Just be. You don't have to make excuses for what you're going to say. Apologize for what you're going to say or how you're going to express yourself or be. Just say it. Just be it. But, okay. It lets me know that you are being psychophantic and you are being patronizing. I don't really see that as a bad thing, though. All right, he says, you are really good at this, and it is very insightful for me. Thank you. I like the feedback. He says, I know that my current circumstances are not healthy for my girlfriend's happiness. So you already know this, right? My video is just confirming it. But it's not to point the finger. I'm not here to point fingers at no one. I don't have room to point fingers at anyone, to be honest, okay? So, that I'm just sharing with you guys my perspective, right, on things. You know that your current circumstances are not healthy for your girlfriend's happiness. I recognize I'm not being fully open with her. She doesn't know about my desire to be topped or shared with a dominant black man or mixed race black guy. I appreciate that she is entitled to know this. You appreciate that she is entitled. I don't think you appreciate that she's entitled to know this. That's what you're telling yourself. You know, sometimes we tell ourselves, like, lies. Like you're writing this email to me, but you're really writing it to yourself, right? Like, oftentimes people try to convince other people, and I stop them in their tracks, right? I have to, like, when I notice that people do that, I have to, like, yo, pause, stop. Like, you don't have to convince me. I make that very clear. Because I know when people are, like, going out their way to try to prove or convince, and that is very telling in and of itself when a person does that. Because you don't even believe that, right? You're saying you appreciate that she is entitled to know this. I don't sense that you really believe that, though. That you really believe that you appreciate that she is entitled to know this. I think you're wanting to appreciate it. Because appreciation is followed by action, though. You're saying this, so maybe you're setting the stage for yourself to gain an appreciation for her as a woman who should know this about you. Should know that you aren't being fully open with her. If you see and respect her as a human being. She should know about your desire to be topped or share with a dominant black man. She should know about your true driving motivation for your asking her. You're proposing this idea for her to participate in cuckolding. She should know the true underlying driving force behind this proposal that you have set before her. She should know that it's not so much about, okay, you wanting her to be sexually satisfied, but it's really about yourself, though. And you go to say that you appreciate that she is entitled to know this. But your actions have not been in alignment with that appreciation. Because if you really appreciate it, then you would have already let her know. Right? You mentioned that you are a logical, deep thinking person. So does that align with your sense of logic, with your line of logic, what I just said? For you as a logical, deep thinking person? Does that align with logic? I just want to make sure we're on the same page before we go forward. Now, it may align with logic, but it may not align with what's inside your desire, right? It's obviously contradictory, right? And that's the selfish part of you. We all have that self-serving part of ourselves that we know we are maybe desire something and want something or do something out of our own selfish need. That's really contradictory to like any kind of sense of logic, right? What we say is often contradictory to what we do, because oftentimes what we do is just, it's self-serving. All right. I will respond to some of the queries you raised as follows. He did only respond to some because I raised a question as to ask him what is his attraction to her. I don't think he answered that question. Now, like I said, I glanced over his email like when I first woke up, right? Because I checked my email this first thing in the morning as I'm still lying in bed. But I don't remember any of the questions that he addressed, which he addressed. He has like, he numbered it. I like that. He numbered that shit. 15. Okay. I like order. He's very organized. I like that. Succinct in his expose. I like that. A lot. It's easy for me to digest and understand and comprehend. So he makes it easy. But yeah, I don't think he addressed that. Because I did pose that question. I asked him, what is his attraction to her? If he doesn't have a desire to penetrate her, what is his attraction to her? I don't know. Let's go though. Let's go, because he numbers these, right? He basically responds to things that I mentioned in the previous video, part 1 of Cuckolding in the UK. In parentheses, he says, please note, I am being honest here and not trying to titillate myself or abuse your goodwill. I'm laughing because I'm like, what is the need for that? Why do you have to note that, right? That should already be understood. I mean, I already indicated that the reason why I'm responding to his email, because I don't respond and address everyone's email, but the reason why I'm doing that with him is because I sense that he is genuine. He's authentic. He's transparent. He's forthcoming, right? And I feel like other people can benefit from this analysis and us dissecting this situation. So why do you feel the need to say that you're not trying to titillate yourself or abuse your goodwill? My goodwill. He says, okay, these are his words. Please note, I am being honest here and not trying to titillate myself or abuse your goodwill. And so if there's too much detail, then please say. I am not looking to offend or cross boundaries. I don't take it that you're being disrespectful or that you are disrespectful. I don't take it that way. But I guess, he's just being kind. Because in communication, what a person says and how the other person interprets it can be two different things, right? So I guess he's just laying the groundwork to say he's not here to offend me. I don't think I would take offense to anything he says, though. But let's read what he says. Number 1, okay. He says, number 1, my girlfriend is definitely one to suffer in silence, and I'm aware from heated arguments previously that she feels insecure in the relationship, although I try and reassure her otherwise. I don't drink coffee, but I do drink cranberry juice in the morning. This is cranberry juice. So, I'm not getting that sense, but alright, whatever. Maybe things like a lack of marriage, because I know this because there's a dynamic, obviously, that is being played out in this relationship here, right? And for her to be the one to suffer in silence, so to speak, or to repress her emotions, to kind of just be very agreeable, that says a lot about who he is. Believe it or not, like opposites do attract. And people come together like a glove. I know this about relationships. Oftentimes, like, what we lack within ourselves, we attract someone who possesses that quality. And you're definitely more an assertive person. She's less assertive. And I just have to say that I feel like you have taken advantage of that, even though you may... Did you admit? I think you did admit to taking advantage. Yeah, you said that you know that your current circumstances are not healthy for your girlfriend's happiness. It's not your fault, though. Because sometimes people can feel like very bad, right? Not to say that you don't take responsibility. So, fault and responsibility are two different things, right? When I say that it's not your fault, I'm saying that what's inherent within you is what's in you. And that's usually comes as a result of how you were raised, right? The context in which you grew up in. And the same thing for her. And then the universe brought you guys together and fit together like a glove. So the dynamic sometimes, it just plays out, right? We're talking about two people coming together. These two beings, these two forces were shaped by external forces in their environment, right? And they come together and they work. It fits. It works. It's functional. But then a higher thinking person, a higher thinking mind begins, like you said, take yourself out of it, take your ego out, right? And to be able to look at something objectively, you can see that, okay, although it's working, is it healthy? Ask yourself that question. Because something can be working, but doesn't mean that it's freaking healthy. People drive cars that are functional, but they're not functional in a sense, right? Something is wrong, and the longer you continue to drive it, when there's something wrong, and the mechanics of that car is driving that car down a very bad place, right? To the point where that car is eventually going to fucking stop working. Because it's being driven on parts that aren't working, parts that have broken down. And there are parts in your relationship that, yes, it's still working, it's still functional, but it's not functioning in a healthy way. Like a car that's all beat up and fucked up. It's not functioning in a healthy way. You can tell it by the smell of the car. You're like, wait, something doesn't smell right with this car. It doesn't sound right? That's why we have senses. To know, our senses give us the ability to perceive, to know, right? And you smell something wrong with the car, and you see something wrong with the car. You can feel the way a car is driving. You can feel that, okay, it's not driving right, even though it's getting you from point A to point B. You can hear something a little bit off, some ticking noise, right? It's like, wait, all these signs are telling you that, okay, something is wrong with this car, yet it's still functional. So that rundown car is like your relationship. Many people's relationship, though. It works. I've been in dysfunctional relationships. I'm very transparent. Because I feel very free when we can just live our truth. I know society doesn't make it easy for us to just be real. So you gotta lie, you gotta put on a front, you gotta wear shades, you gotta wear a mask, figuratively speaking. It's just like, but for me, I found it more freeing, more beneficial to just be honest. And I've done that. I've been transparent, like, in my videos. And I've talked about, not all of my relationships, but I talked about, I feel like, the most impactful one. since I've been a vlogger, yeah, I was dating a guy, you know, and I feel like I'm not the one to say, oh, this person is bad. It's just certain aspects of a person, each person in that dynamic, in that relationship, that creates dysfunction, right? Which can be worked on in therapy. This is not therapy, right? This is just us having an intellectual discourse, conversation, right? A very heartful conversation. But it can be worked on, I think, and worked out in therapy, in person, right? Not virtual. That virtual fucking telehealth shit is a joke, if you ask me. But yeah, I've encountered that. And my ex, you know, he was a great guy, I would say. But there were aspects of him and aspects of me that when brought together, that shit was fucking chaotic. Okay? It was just like, no. It was a train wreck. So it's important to be transparent. Like I said, it's very freeing to do so. It's freeing. Because oftentimes people live in a cage. A lot of people in relationships are in cages. Not even being in a relationship. You can just be a single person, but you're living in a cage. A prison of silence. Maybe things, and this is still part of part one. I mean, number one, shall I say. Number one, like I said, there are, 15 points that he addresses, right? From my previous video. This is still number one. He says, maybe things like a lack of marriage. Okay, maybe things like a lack of marriage. Or not being married, right? Because you're not married to her. Add to that uncertainty. And me suggesting cuckold really doesn't assist. You know this. Like, he knows this. I didn't tell him this. He knew this was already in him, right? This is him reflecting, right? My words just may have stimulated some things that were in him, kind of stirred it up a little bit, but this is stuff already in him. And he has enough cognitive ability and insight to look within himself, to reflect upon his own life, to bring out the truth, to allow the truth to surface and come to his conscious mind. So he knows this. I am not in a delusion that my girlfriend has a wonderful life with me. Alright. I mean, part of it is not to say it's all bad though, right? Nothing is all good, nothing is all bad. There's reasons why she's still there, right? There are reasons why she's still there, and that's another thing that I was curious about. Like, I don't know if what's her occupation, or not really occupation. I mean, I don't think that's really important, but like, what's her contribution to the household, right? Why the fuck is she even there? You know, like, what is she contributing to the household? Does she pay bills, right? She's getting something from you. She's benefiting from that relationship that she has with you. What is she benefiting? What is she gaining? What is in it for her? Is it a sense of being loved by a person? Being cared for? Are you taking care of her, like, financially? Where you are the sole person responsible for paying the bills in the household? Perhaps? And then she handles, like, the domestic duties, like your traditional man-woman relationship. Because it's something, like, it's always something that keeps a woman there. And although, like, you recognize that, okay, what are your words? You say that, she isn't happy, or you're aware that your current circumstances are not healthy for your girlfriend's happiness, which means that not only what's happening, right, is counterproductive to her happiness, more specifically, it could be taking away from her happiness, taking away from it, causing her pain, right? I think the way you framed it to say that your current circumstances are not healthy for your girlfriend's happiness, that's a very soft way of saying it. It's not healthy for her happiness. But in that same vein, how could you reword it to really flesh out what is actually happening, right? If it's not healthy for her happiness, then what is it actually causing? What is it contributing to, right? Pain. You mentioned insecurity, right? That she feels insecure. And you're asking her to participate in cuckolding. Doesn't assist, doesn't help. Could she be depressed? Could she just be unhappy? Not happy at all. There's no source of happiness that is around her at all, right? Could it be parasitic, right? Where you're feeling satisfied, your needs are being met at the expense of taking and pulling away from her livelihood, right? Now, I'm not saying, like I said, it's not your fault, but it is your responsibility. So, she, like you said, she grew up in a certain type of environment. A lot of people have, right? I can relate to her. A lot of people have. And it's just the norm. They have been conditioned to believe that suffering is a form of love, right? The way you show your love for a man is to show how much can you suffer for him. Kind of symbolic to Christianity. And how, I know this is it's related, but it's its own video topic, right? But I have to say this. How Christianity was used in the enslavement of African people. And that African people were indoctrinated in this belief system that their suffering was symbolic to the suffering of Jesus Christ. And continues to be, right? This is not just like, okay, that was back in the 1600s, 1700s, or 1800s, or whatever. No, it's like, even in this day and age that we live in 2021, a lot of African Americans still embody that belief that there's a beauty to suffering, right? There's a reward. There's a reward to suffering. Because Jesus Christ suffered. So, yeah, a lot of women believe that. And it's not to say it doesn't bring her closer to you or make her feel more connected to you in that way. Because she probably does. The more she suffers in that relationship, the more connected she feels towards you. But yet it's still at her own detriment, right? So you see, like, there's a kind of parallel process happening where she can be drawn to you through the suffering, feel connected to you through this suffering, but meanwhile at the same time, feels, unhappy and insecure and disappointed, and that could lead to, lack of hope, right? That goes down a whole different path, because she's human. This is the human experience, so it's only natural for her to feel these things in response to what she has succumbed to, what she has, been exposed to in this relationship dynamic, this type of dynamic, that when I say dynamic, like I'm saying, it's not really just your fault. It's a dynamic, meaning like there are many different factors are at play, and some of those factors are inherent within her. Right? It's not just, oh, point the finger at the man or point the finger at her. You know, it's a dynamic that is being played out. I am not in a delusion that my girlfriend has a wonderful life with me. As you said, people pick up on real, and I think my girlfriend has for a long time realized that these things aren't quite right. Bingo. Humans transmit energy, good and bad. Exactly. Because of her conservative, now this is number 2 now. Going to number 2. Because of her conservative culture, you are right again. She is one to say yes and be agreeable, and I am often alert of this. I certainly don't abuse this and don't smother her. But you have, though. And we're going to get into that because your next point, wow, look at this. Like, if you really just take a look at people's train of thought, their process, right? You can analyze a person's thought process, and there's so much information there, right? And I was just about to go into this point, but he goes into it, right? Because I'm in tune with this. Because the number 2, for him to say that I certainly don't abuse this and don't smother her, right? That's a defense mechanism that is speaking. That's his defense. To my defense as a 39-year-old white male who wants to convince my girlfriend of 10 years to engage in. Listen, I'm not even gonna go there. But listen, y'all get my point. He's to my defense, right? I don't abuse her and don't smother her. That's a defense mechanism. He's in denial. But anyway, and seeing that defense pop up, right, I spotted out. I was just about to say this, but he says it in number 3. And what does he say? I have been caught over the years having had some flings with other women. That is entirely my bad. And something which I know has caused significant hurt and pain to my girlfriend, which I regret. I can't. He's a good writer, though. I give him that credit. Like, he's a good writer. He would make a really good fictional writer, I think. I don't sleep around anymore and release my sexual desires with regular masturbation. Alright. You've done it over the years, and then now you don't do it anymore. Alright. What made you stop? You felt so bad for her that you stopped? I mean, what was the straw that broke the camel's back that made you stop? Betraying her and lying to her. Not to say that you stopped lying to her, because you admit that you are still lying to her. You're still lying to her. You're still withholding information. about your true intentions for wanting her to engage in this alternative lifestyle or activity, you know, with cuckolding. But you don't have to convince me, though. I mean, like I said, I like that you number these things, right? To address comments that I made in the previous video. But it sometimes makes me wonder, when people are very wordy, that they have something to prove. And it's not to prove to me, though. Please be mindful, right? Who the fuck am I? You don't have to prove shit to me. But you're proving it to yourself, right? And you're doing that by responding to me. But it's really it's yourself, because this is something that you felt compelled to do. Right? This is something that you had impulses that were going off as you were watching my video. There were impulses within you. Impulsions within you. That you felt compelled to say these things that you're saying, right? This essay that you're writing. And listen, I know you apologize saying, oh, you didn't want to take up my time. And listen, I choose on who I want to respond to, what I want to respond to. So you don't have to apologize for that, right? If I'm making a video, it's because I choose and I want to do this. And I actually enjoy it, right? So you're not taking my time. You know, it's good that you're mindful and being respectful in that sense, to say, okay, you didn't want to take up too much of my time. But it's not about you taking up too much of my time, as it is about when you are aware, because he's aware that, whoa, I wrote a lot. This is a lot, right? And so the way he assuages his own discomfort, right? Because you realize, like, you're aware. Your awareness that, oh, wow, damn, I wrote a lot. That awareness in of itself creates a bit of kind of unease within you, right? So that that unease leads you to apologize to me as if you're concerned about me. Like, is this being too much for me? It's not too much for me. Nothing is really too much for me. If it's too much, then listen, I'll send a person to spam. It's not too much. But this is great for you, though. This is for you. This is a gift that you're giving to yourself, right? And in this process, you feel the need to explain yourself. So that's noteworthy, right? Like, that's noteworthy to pay attention to. You're wordy because you have this compulsion, this guilt. Something is happening inside of you. As you were watching my video and as you're writing this, something is happening, right? You're having this conversation with yourself, right? I urge you to go back and read what you wrote. I'm addressing what you wrote here, but it's better for you. This is all for you, bruh. To go and read, what are you saying? Because this, what you're saying here, what you emailed to me, is an internal conversation. It's a process that is happening with yourself that needs to be resolved. It's not resolved, but it needs to be resolved. Because it is a lot. And again, I have to say, it's not a lot for me, but this is a lot for you to have on your mind. These 15 points that you brought up, this is a lot on your mind. A lot going on within you. Now, this is number 3, right? The whole part about him being caught over the years, having flings with other women. That is entirely my bad and something which I know has caused significant hurt and pain, blah, 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 blah. This is I mentioned earlier that I just think he has male privilege, right? Bingo. Bingo. Proof that you have male privilege. This is male privilege here. Number 3 is male privilege. Do I need to read this again? I have been caught over the years having had some flings with other women. That is entirely my bad, and something which I know has caused significant hurt and pain to my girlfriend, which I regret. Do you regret it? Oftentimes people apologize, right? In word and in action by changing their behavior. But they're really not sorry. They're just sorry that, they got caught, right? If they could do and engage in that activity, and I'm not making judgment on the activity, right? The wrong part is not being honest about it, and which I kind of feel for men, that men feel they need to apologize for acting upon their natural impulses to have sex with multiple women. I am of the belief that that's just a natural impulse for men. And I know some people will say, oh no, that's socialization, right? But it can be both, right? How we are socialized becomes part of our genetics. That's called epigenetics, right? How we were raised, how we were conditioned, brainwashed or whatever, right? Influenced by different external sources, the media, school, whatever, right? Socialization process, growing up in school, peer pressure, all of that does impact our genetics. Everything impacts your genetics, okay? So it does, it does make it a natural process, an inclination in that sense. And I don't blame men necessarily, but yes, men must be responsible in their actions. And if you know this about yourself, see, a lot of men don't know, and they're at least not honest, right, with themselves. You have to be honest with yourself first, and then with your partner. That if you have these inclinations, right, it's not like you just act upon it and be like, oh, well, damn, I didn't know that about myself. I didn't know that I like to have sex with multiple women. And so I discovered this after I got caught, right? And then it becomes a factor of discussion. But I feel like, why not have that? That's like backwards shit, right? That's backwards. Have that discussion beforehand. Put it on the table. But then if you put it on the table, then how many women will you be able to get? I guess that could be a thought that a lot of men have. And that's not true. It's not to say you wouldn't get a lot of women. There are men that are honest. Men are doing this right now as we speak, that have been honest with themselves and have accepted, you know what, I am not monogamous. I'm polygamous. Because I know there are many different labels, and sometimes the labels really don't encompass really who we are. But just for conversation purposes, so that you guys understand what I mean, it's really sexually free. I think that would be a better term than polygamous, right? Like sexually free, sexually fluid. But yeah, just say that. I'm a sexually free person, and I don't subscribe to the labels, or I'm not subjected to like this stereotypical idea of what a man should be, in terms of monogamous and married to one woman, or dedicated, committed to one woman, only having sex with one woman. You're free. Sexually free. That is your natural inclination. And I think that is better for men to just put that on the table. And then allow women to choose. And there are men that are doing that. I've come across men like that on dating site. And they honest, and they say, I'm not looking for anything necessarily. I'm not, they'll say, like, if something happens, we'll see what happens kind of language, right? We'll see what happens. If something happens from this interaction, okay, cool, but I'm not really searching for that, desiring that, right? I think that's better to lead with that. And then you'll also have men, you know, in the same vein will say, you know, I'm just here for fun, you know. Just be forthcoming. Unless you have a fetish of manipulating women. That can be a fetish in of itself, unless you get kind of turned on by misleading women into thinking that, okay, yeah, you want this glamorized life or view perspective of, you know, being married to a woman, being with a woman, and being monogamous and having a family, like, you know, the fucking Hollywood shit, right? But deep down inside, you really don't want that, or you know that who you are, because you should know yourself. You know damn well you're not really in alignment with that. Like, that's very far-fetched, and that's why a lot of men, like, they get cold feet. They run away from marriage because it's like, wait, this is not even realistic for me. Like, that's not even suitable. Why force yourself to live in a world that really is not fitting for you? Then you become a character. You become an actor. Living a false life. Right? So, we still on number 3 though. But like I said, it speaks to your privilege that you have as a man. That you even have, and not you, but men have the ability, right, to have flings with multiple women. And that's just what it is. You can do that. Can women do that? Not necessarily. Without being called a slut, but it's just like men are encouraged to do that, I think, in our society. Even growing up from being a little, you know, boy, teenager in school, y'all get reinforced. Like, oh, did you hit it? Did you tap that ass? Like, you know, that's just the language within African American culture, and every culture has their own language that they use. I'm sure white men in your culture and growing up in the UK, y'all had y'all phrases, things that men would say to other boys, like, you know, to see. And it's like you get cool points for it, you know, by having sex with different girls in school, you know. And the more girls you have sex with, it's like a badge of honor, you know. You get this validation. And that's just become part of who you are. So to say you feel bad entirely? No, you didn't feel bad. You did it. What is there to feel bad about? You feel bad about how it made her feel, right? But then it's happened repeatedly. So maybe now, in your mature, selfless mind that you're using right now, as you wrote this, okay, you feel bad. In thinking about her and seeing her as a human being, you feel bad, right? And regretful. But you say you don't sleep around anymore. Alright. And you release your sexual desires with regular masturbation. That to me is fucking confusing. And it sounds very contradictory. That's why I'm still on number 3, right? I'm still on number 3 because you have a woman. She was born a woman, right? I mean, help me understand. She was born female. She was born female. You got a whole woman living under the same roof as you that you've been with for 10 years. But you masturbate? Listen, I don't know what's going on with her anatomy, her physiology, her physical health. You did say, I think you addressed this later on, that your penis is working, is functional. why aren't you having sex with her if you've had sex with all these other women? So do you see where the contradiction is? Like, if you have this desire, I don't know if you're saying number 3, right, to prove how heterosexual you are and having a sexual attraction to women, because I did address that in the previous video. You're doing that out of trying to prove that, oh no, I like women because I had fucked a lot of women even during our relationship. But you won't fuck her? And you say you don't have a desire to penetrate her, though. Where does that come from? Like, you didn't really answer my questions, necessarily. I'm like, what is her purpose in that relationship? Why is she there? But let's go on. Number 4. He says, she is certainly free to leave, and in one previous argument, I effectively ended their relationship. Effectively ended their relationship. As I recognize at times that we are not giving each other what we both need, and in her case, deserves. You effectively ended their relationship. What the hell does that mean? Did you guys separate physically, move apart? Because you say that you guys live together. What does effectively end the relationship mean? Yo ass is another Stephen King. So you're saying that your needs weren't being met. Because you said that you ended it because at times that you guys were not giving each other what you both needed, and in her case, deserves. She was very upset and refused to leave. But how did you effectively end it if she didn't leave? I was very upset at seeing her so distressed and immediately reconciled. Sounds like you guys are effectively over. Effectively, their relationship has already ended. You already ended this shit, right? And then y'all somehow reconcile. I don't think y'all reconcile. Y'all not even having sex. Y'all not even intimate with each other. Where did the reconciliation come from? What was the indicator that you guys reconciled that rupture? I don't see how. She was very upset and refused to leave. People threaten separation as a form of manipulation. Because you mentioned, right, and I think for you to include her, when you say we both needed, right, we weren't getting what we both needed, you're doing that as a cover-up. You're saying that as a cover-up to make yourself appear to be caring, loving, and compassionate. But really, you were not getting what you wanted. You wanted, or you say needed, whatever. So you threatened separation as a manipulation tactic. And then when that happened, right, when you effectively ended the relationship and you reconciled, then what happened? Did you get your needs met? You can answer that for yourself. I feel like what I'm saying, a lot of comments that I'm making and questions that I'm posing, like, that's just for your self-reflection. But if you want to continue this dialogue, by all means, I have time. Oh, I have time. I mean, this is fun for me, so it's engaging. And I feel like it's informative. That's the biggest reason why I'm doing this. I feel like, it's a teaching lesson. And I'm glad that you are very willing to share this with us as a teaching lesson, so that we can all learn from it. Because There are parts of us being spoken about in your circumstances, because it's just a human experience, right? We're all human, so we can relate. This is very relatable, what you're saying. So much of what you're saying is so relatable. We've lived this. So I appreciate, your transparency. Because in you coming to a deeper understanding of yourself and your relationship, it helps other people to look within themselves, right? Because they relate to what you're saying. So then people are doing their own kind of self-reflection too in this process. She was very upset and refused to leave. Because she didn't want to leave. You ending their relationship. I mean, let's just pause right there, though. I mean, I know it feels like I'm spending a lot of time on each point that he's making, right? And like I said, he has 15, and we are only on number 4. But there's a lot of information here, because he says he effectively ended the relationship. And I find it to be interesting and somewhat disturbing, too, how people resort to, a breakup, right? It's a manipulation tactic. It's very rare that people resort to trying to repair or seek counsel for their relationship, right? Trying to fix it. They just threaten, all right, I'm going to leave you. This is not working, so I'm out. I'm leaving. Let's just end it. But why not? Let's just fix it. Is it easier to end a relationship than it is to fix it? Perhaps. So you take the easy road. Why are you guys together? To end a relationship and to be so quick, right? So quick to resort to that. All right, I'm ended, right? Or maybe you thought about it. Maybe you took some time to really think, contemplate, like, damn, weigh it out. And then you came to a decision to end it. But I'm just saying, to end a relationship, I don't know how far along you guys were in that relationship when this happened, right? When you effectively ended the relationship. But it is, yeah, she's upset, and underneath the upset is hurt. She's hurt at that point because it says so much, right? It speaks volumes when people end relationships. It's just like, damn, really? You're throwing the relationship away. In a sense, you're throwing me away. Like, I don't mean anything to you, right? And that can be a form of psychological abuse, because some people end relationships every fucking day. I'm not even exaggerating. Like, every day they breaking up with the same person. Like, listen, I'm done with you, right? And they still there, right? But yeah, it's a form of psychological abuse because of what is happening in her internal process. You just mentioned that she was very upset and refused to leave, but there was more happening within her in that moment, though. More than just being upset. Underneath upset usually is pain and hurt, right? It manifests itself as upset, but upset, that's just, I don't know, that's like watered down. It's very watered, that's a watered down way of describing a person's emotion. Oh, you're upset. No, she was more than upset. Now, if you've done this over and over and over again, right? Like, at the time when you're talking about this in number 4, that you've done this, repeatedly. Yeah, she probably was upset and probably annoyed. Like, damn, if you're gonna leave, just leave, right? But you said she refused to leave. Where the fuck she's gonna go? Go leave to go where? Did you tell her to get out, leave? Well, goddamn, that's very hard to do, right? When all you know is this. Living at a certain place. This is my home. And now I'm being told to leave my home. And go where? To pick up, to uproot. And go where? where the fuck what am I gonna do now, right? I gotta start a whole new life because this was my life. This is my world. This is all I knew for so many years, and now I have to go and create a whole new world, new life. That's hard to do. It's very hard to do. Even when a person is enduring the most significant, the worst form of abuse, it's hard for even abused women, like that are in very harsh, I'm talking about harsh situations. I'm not saying that this is your situation. I'm just saying this to paint a picture, to show how hard it is to leave what's familiar to you. Because that's become your norm. That's become your reality. It's very frightening to leave. It's very frightening to start over a whole new life. You're stepping out into the unknown. It's much easier to just stay in the comfort zone. Even if that comfort zone leaves you with bruises, black eyes, and leaves you feeling insecure, that's still a comfort zone, even within that pain and abuse. You say, I was very upset at seeing her so distressed and immediately reconcile. Maybe you're a sadist. Kind of give me sadist vibes. Like I said, it's not out of judgment, right? It's just like me pointing out something that just popped up in my mind. Because there are sadists who get off on seeing people in distress and pain, and knowing that they hold that power, right, to keep a person there for however long they want until they want to release them. And they're like, all right, your need has been met in that sense, right, where you had enough of seeing her in that distress, and so you reconcile. But immediately, like some of like your specifiers here kind of show like, yo, you're lying, you're fibbing, right? Immediately reconcile. I just think that's your way of just trying to prove yourself as a good guy. Alright, but anyway, I am not, okay, number 5. I am not camp or effeminate. Not trying to qualify, but to giving you a fuller picture. I enjoy female company and am naturally quite flirty with women. Yeah, I said that. Like, it's just a natural inclination. That's what you're supposed to do. As come on, you have testosterone. That's what it's what you're designed to do, based on your biological makeup. But do open up and discuss my feelings and tend to do so more with female friends. That threw me for a loop, because I'm like, what does that have to do with anything that was mentioned in the previous video? I don't know. I don't recall. What does that have to, that feels like something that's so random. Number 5, it just sounds like you just bloop, dropped it out. Like, not trying to qualify, you say in parentheses, but to give you a fuller picture of who you are as a man who is understanding of women's emotions, by saying that you enjoy female company and you like discussing things with female friends and da da da. okay, I don't see you as good or bad, right? We're just having a conversation really about ideas. And, your life is just a catapult for this, right? This can apply to anybody. This could be a fictional story, right? This could be a movie for all I'm concerned. This is just human life, right? This is just ideas. So you don't have to prove anything to me. Number 6. Yes, my penis functions. And a recent medical shows that I have good testosterone levels. I'm a horny guy. Now, you haven't mentioned anything about any kids. And you're talking about 10 years? And you sound like you be fucking. But you didn't mention kids. Maybe you want to keep the kids out of the conversation. I respect that. But you say you're a horny guy. But you say you good in that department. It works. Alright. Number 7. But that still doesn't answer the question, though. You say you don't have a desire to penetrate her, but I'm assuming you have had sex with her. You just don't no longer satisfy her in that way. Alright. So he goes. Number 7. I am attracted to women and do desire penetration with them. However, number 8, my fantasy for a long time was about female dominatrix and pegging and have experienced prostate play in the past. Number 9, I find the idea of being sodomized by a woman with strap-on or man sexually arousing. And I like the idea of being dominated and topped and humiliated. This is like kind of goes along with your male privilege and sexual freedom. So number 8 and number 9 are consistent with number 3. And my observation that you have male privilege. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's just important to recognize that that's very freeing to just, you can fuck a lot of women and you can fuck men, right? You have so much privilege that you fucked a lot of women. Have fun with that arena. And you want to explore being fucked by men. That's a privilege and that's a freedom. That's a sexual freedom. Own it. That's like anything else in life, People are financially free. You can eat at so many different restaurants, right? Taste testing. You get tired of one cuisine, you can go to another cuisine, right? Same thing. You can travel. You go to this place and you explore, and you're going to the other side of the world and you're exploring, right? And you can look at sex in and of itself as a way to just explore. You're exploring your sexuality. You have sex with women that may be satisfying, though I do want to ask, wait, let me remember. You haven't yet been fucked by a man, right? Number 11. I've never had a sexual encounter with a man, right? You never have been fucked by a man, right? You have a desire to. So, but you have had many sexual encounters with a woman. So I guess I was going to ask, which do you prefer? But you wouldn't know what you prefer if you haven't done it. You can imagine what it would be like and make an assumption on what your preference would be. But maybe you don't know because you haven't done it. You said that you have experimented with prostate play or anal play in the past. I'm assuming with a woman who was a dominatrix, and she played around, your anus, right? And sound you say prostate, so that's even going inside. She went up in there, right? And you like that sensation. But you ain't take it past that. And so I made a video. This was when I was in LA, right before I moved back to New York last year. Alright, because I moved back to New York April 1st. And so I think I made the video in March, and we were just talking about sexuality, right? And someone had wanted me to talk about, is it gay for a man, a heterosexual man, to engage in this kind of anal play with a woman, right? For him to ask his female partner to put on a strap on and to penetrate him anally, is that considered gay? And I read the comments. I actually made 2 parts to that video. I made one where I kind of talked about that and engaged in a discussion with people. And then the part 2 to that video was me reading the comments to the first video. The comments were very, like I said, were very respectful, understanding, non-judgmental. I think the majority of people said, no, because a lot of people are about sexual freedom. But then, of course, there were some that were like, no, that shit gay. Like, that what kind of man wants to be penetrated, even if it's by a woman? What kind of man want his ass penetrated, right? And someone said, like, oh, that will lead to him wanting to have sex, with the real deal, right? Because we're talking about penetration between a man and a woman, and obviously a woman doesn't have a penis. So what is she penetrating him with? A toy, right? Him having that experience is assumed that it will lead to a craving for the real thing. Penis, dick, right? Because there's a certain kind of energy that comes with the dick. So, we were talking about that, and I had to say that personally, I wouldn't say, a man is gay, right? Because I get it. I understand that there is sexual fluidity, and a man can be heterosexual, and like you mentioned, not really have a desire to engage with a male partner in ways he would a woman, right? Like the whole kissing and the whining and dining and getting intimate in non-sexual ways. However, it's not the craving that you want, the stimulation that you crave. It's just, I think, a means to an end. And the end is the sexual penetration, like the feeling of being dominated. That shit feels great. Like being dominated sexually, right? That's the end. That's what you crave. And so there's a means to achieve that goal, right? And having sex with a woman who has a strap on is one means to that. And having sex with a man who doesn't have to have a strap on because he got the right tool. He has the real deal tool down there, right? That's another means to your end goal, right? Does it mean that does it qualify you as a gay man, right? I mean, that's still up for debate. But does it fucking matter, right? Because it's not about, are you gay? It's about, are you enjoying your sex life? And if so, how? And if not, why not, right? That's really the question. So, you haven't, I have to go back because you say you haven't had this conversation with her. She doesn't know. She doesn't know. Maybe is that what you're answering in number 5. Because I'll keep posing the question, why is she there? What does she mean to you? What is her purpose? What does she serve for you? Maybe it's just like female companionship, which you talked about in number 5. So maybe that's where number 5 comes from. Something like that seems so random what you said in number 5, but I think about it, kind of makes sense. All right, number 9, going back, you said, I find the idea of being sadomized by a woman. It sounds like you combine like sadistic and sodomize. Is that even a word, sadomize? I guess so. But anyway, by a woman with a strap on, or man sexually arousing, and I like the idea of being dominated and topped and humiliated. Humiliated in what way? I find humiliation as a kink, as a fetish, quite interesting. I don't think that's one of my fetishes, though. Though I have been humiliated. I don't like the feeling. It's just, oh my gosh, it makes you feel so vulnerable. Which obviously being dominated, you are vulnerable. But I don't like that type of vulnerability. I don't. I've experienced humiliation many times in past relationships, and I just don't like it. Humiliation in terms of like public humiliation. I felt very uncomfortable. I talk about this in my autobiographical fictional story, Dying to Submit. The scene out in the park at Stone Mountain Park, on my website at danielleleach.com. I talked about that. That was a form of humiliation, y'all. That's humiliation. And the spanking in public, that's humiliation. That is humiliation. I'm like, no. Public spanking, yo. Granted, I like spankings now, right? I love discipline. But in public, fuck no. That's humiliation. I don't like that. I don't know what type of humiliation you're talking about. I'll be curious to know, though. Humiliation. Alright, number 10. I have developed an attraction to penis, clearly. 11. I have never had a sexual encounter with a man. Hence, why it's a desire of yours, too. Right? These are fantasies, things that you've been thinking about. Yo, I feel like the longer you sit with a fantasy, the better the experience will be when you actually live it out. Hell, fuck yeah. This is gonna come down to like, this is the moment you've been waiting for. Alright. Number 12. I maintain in the relationship with my girlfriend out of companionship. Okay. You answered my question. Familiarity and routine, and yes, she does look after me in the home. She isn't a glamour woman who I parade as trophy wife. Now, going back to my statement about trophy wife, and how a lot of men just have women like on their shoulder as a trophy wife. I didn't mean like trophy wife in a sense like, oh, look at my glamorous wife, like she's so beautiful. Not in that sense. I just guess I meant it like in a general, regular sense that like a wife can be considered a trophy. And trophies, what do you do with trophies? Like you kind of put them on a shelf. But you put them on a shelf to be seen, right, by other people. It's like a trophy is like a symbol of an accomplishment. Like, look. When people come to your house and they see your trophies, like on the wall, on the shelf, they're like, oh, it's a conversation starter. It's just like, it makes you feel like you've accomplished something in your own eyes and in the eyes of other people. And through that accomplishment and that recognition, you are given, you're respected. You're held like up a notch, right? in the eyes. And so when I say like trophy wife, I meant like just a wife in of herself is like a trophy. You know, no matter if she's beautiful or how she looks or if she's glamour or whatever, she can be considered a trophy in the public's eye. Just to have a wife, it's very significant. Though I know, like, contemporary belief from a lot of men, but I think this is immature thinking. A lot of men look at a wife as like, oh, you got a wife. Damn, boy, you married? You gave up your freedom like that? You know, some people look at a wife in that light, but I think more people kind of hold to the traditional value and sense of what a wife is, you know, and it's to be respected. So, number 13, there is no duress or emotional blackmail for her to stay in the relationship or the home. And I don't take for granted that one day she may decide to up and leave. She has several friends who she sees regularly. Alright. Maybe you want her to leave though. Do you want her to stay? I mean, you wanna... Okay, this is a question. Which is kind of more important if you had to come to a fork in the road and choose, right? Which direction would you go? Which holds more weight? You being with her, right? You mentioned that she's a companion. Y'all have like this long-lasting friendship and routine. The companionship, or you being able to live out your fantasy? Or you think you can do both? Maybe you don't have to choose one or the other. Maybe you can do both. That's where you're at right now. That will be interesting though to see if in the long run she obliges and y'all gonna be having threesomes. It's funny though, because you haven't mentioned to her, right? You said this at the beginning of this email, that she don't know about your desire to be topped or fucked by a man, right? She don't know that you have a desire to be penetrated. But it's funny though, it's when you think it's kind of ironic that you think you're in to getting her to agree with essentially you being fucked by a man, right? Because that's like the backdoor approach that we talked about, right? That's the end goal, right? You think that you should take one route to get her to agree. But what if you don't even have to go through all of that? Sometimes y'all may be doing too much, or people in general just be doing too much, right? What if you ain't even got to go through all of that, showing her these pictures of all these men to say, all right, well here, this is for you. And so you're thinking, is that okay, she will be more willing to participate if it's something in it for her. And in your mind, what's in it for her is penetration, which she lacks in the current relationship with you, right? Sexual gratification, penetration, which she'll be able to gain by having sex with a man of her choosing, right? As if that's a favor for her. But she is reluctant to, like, what? And we already agreed, right, that women know. Women have intuition. Women know. She know, like, wait, what the hell is he up to, right? But you haven't even gotten to the point of disclosing what you're really up to with this proposal. That's only like one part of it, what you introduced to her. That's not really like the totality of it, the end goal of it, right? So I'm just wondering, like, why not just have that conversation with her? Because it would be ironic. It would be funny to see, like, if she's totally with the shits, right? We don't know what is her deep down desires. Maybe she will be more turned on than what you think by the opposite happening, right? Because you're proposing the idea of you watching her get banged out by a man, da da da. Like, no, what if the opposite is true? That she will fucking get turned the fuck on by watching your ass get bent over and banged out by a well-endowed black man or mixed race man. Or putting on a strap on and fucking you to prime you both for this Big Bang experience, right? The real deal. What if that would be a sense of, a source of empowerment for her? Just to go straight to the punch with the strap on and with the real deal meat. But you sitting up here wanting her to have sex with other men. What if that's not what she's into? What if she's more into your true end goal? You would be surprised, yo. You would be surprised. Because she's been in that submissive role for so long. That could be a sense of power, empowerment for her. To do that role reversal. 14. I wouldn't feel comfortable being publicly known as bisexual owing to my own preference for privacy and perhaps the connotations attached to it. Owing to your own preference for privacy. But what is driving your need for privacy? It's not, I don't think it's about privacy. Privacy of what? I'm not saying you to be sitting here and broadcasting to the public people, like in your circle where you are, these specific details of your sexual desires. No, we're not talking about that. I'm just talking about your sexual preference, right? Not that you are under any obligation to do that either, though. But I'm just saying for your own sake. Maybe, I guess, in your mind and in your reality, perhaps, I don't know, it's kind of hard for me to say this, right? But is it really better to withhold that part of who you are and to live in secret? Is that better? Like to be in the closet? Or is it better to be out the closet? You say, and perhaps the connotations attached to it. The connotations attached to being bisexual. Or the ridicule attached to it. Because those are two different things, right? I mentioned that, though. That could be out of your need to protect your identity, your image, your reputation, your ego, as a man, as a self-respecting man, to not attach yourself to labels that have negative connotations, right? If you esteem yourself to be, like I have high self-esteem, right? So the last thing I would do is attach myself to anything, not just labels, but anything or anyone that compromises my sense of self, right? And my identity. Not knowingly, anyway. I wouldn't want to do that, and I wouldn't do that, not knowingly. But if I feel like that those connotations were removed, right? The negative connotations were removed. The ridicule didn't exist. Would that make it easier for you to just be who you are. I'm not saying going out there with a sign broadcasting the shit and participating in a gay parade. I don't know if y'all have gay parades in the UK. I don't know what city you live in. But I'm not saying that. But I'm saying to just, like, not to have to be underground with it. Because it will expose you to other people who are with it. And I guess in your private space, you know, you allow certain people to know. But that's probably still the reason why it's a fantasy for you. Because you're kind of putting yourself in this cage, right? The cage is a prison, but it's still a comfort zone for you. That affords you a sense of privacy. But it's still a cage. And that cage you're in is limiting, right? And allowing you to be able to, like the universe, to work in a way that brings people to you. Because like when you put things out there in the universe, right? For example, like who you are, who you genuinely are, right? And that's only one aspect, right? That's just not who you are in totality, being a bisexual man who has desires to cuckold or just be fucked by other men, right? That's not who you are in totality. That's only one aspect. Like you said, you are an attorney. Like that's a high respecting position in your society. You're very important in your society, and that's one aspect of who you are, right? That's so. I think in putting that out in the universe, you are willing things to happen in your environment, right, in your world, by being able to do that, but not putting it out there, right? You're living in a cage. You're limiting yourself, and so that's why it's still a fantasy. But you'll be surprised what's on the other side of fear. What's on the other side of your comfort zone, because you've created your own comfort zone, right? Limits. You have limits that created this comfort zone. But then when you expand those limits, your comfort zone gets bigger. So your comfort zone now is just you living your quiet life as a, you say you're a defense attorney, with your female partner and whatever else your life consists of, right? That's the comfort zone that you created. But that comfort zone can be expanded beyond those limits that you've placed upon yourself, where you can basically essentially create a new comfort zone for yourself that includes that aspect, the other aspect of who you are as a sexually fluid man or free-spirited man, right? I'm just saying, though. Number 15. This is his last point. He says, it is very likely that cuckolding for me is a backdoor way of being potentially able to play with a dominant guy whilst my girlfriend is present. I do enjoy the voyeur aspect also, and I think me watching her being pleasured by another man will be quite humbling and humiliating, and for me that's very arousing. That sums it up. Number 15 sums it up, right? So at least he knows. At least he knows, and I don't think that ushering yourself, right, because your relationship is evolving. I don't think that what your desire is, right, your desire that you have, I don't think it's beyond reach. Nothing is beyond reach. So it's just a matter of time and priming. Alright, so he then kind of goes on to say, I think that ideally I would enjoy a female-led relationship, and that is what I probably desire. I know the way, like my delivery, right? I'm aware of this. Just making you guys aware that I'm aware that, yeah, sometimes you guys just want me just say it, just get to the point, just like be succinct and concise, and I can be that way, but that's not how my mind works oftentimes. It's not just how my mind works, right? Because I do analyze a lot of things, and oftentimes before I speak it, I'm analyzing it, right? So you guys are just waiting for me to just say the next thing I'm going to say. And I know that can be frustrating. And that's why a lot of you guys just click out of my videos, right? And so I've gotten feedback. People say, oh, your videos are too long and you would get more views if you were able to edit your videos. I can't edit. Or if you know what I'm saying, just get straight to the point. And I'm just like, listen, sorry that y'all have these fucking microwave ass goddamn minds, right? Like everybody wants shit quick, fast, in a hurry. Microwave society. And they just have a very short attention span. And my mind doesn't work that way. I've listened, obviously, you know, being a fucking PhD. I've sat in many lectures and listened to professors talk for 3 hours. Okay? So this is kind of the conversation type I'm used to. And a lot of y'all just used to Instagram. It's Insta, quick, 1 minute, and that's it. That's how long your attention span lasts. That's not my attention span. But I get it, you know. Female-led relationship. That's like the new wave now, female-led, right? And it's like, it's come across my periphery so many times that maybe it's making me reconsider. Because, like, I know I've said over and over again, I'm a submissive. I don't, you know, want to dominate a man. I've said this so many times in videos, right? But it's just like, why is so many men, like, desiring to be dominated? That's what that's like the new wave. And someone may say, oh, that's because just what you attract, right? You just attract beta males. No, that's not what I attract. That is what our society is becoming, okay? You got to look at things from a sociological perspective and just take an observation of society. It's not about what a person attracts necessarily. It's what's happening in our fucking society, yo. You know, men don't want to say that or view themselves as being emasculated or effeminate. No, that's taken away from who they have known themselves to be, right? A lot of men would never admit, right? But meanwhile, that's what's happening, though. That's what's happening. And I'm speaking with this tone of voice, not to say that I'm judging or, you know, that it's a problem that's happening necessarily. I'm saying with this tone of voice because that means there's a shift, right? And so that's what's happening with men. Apparently, as the male counterpart, as a woman, that impacts me as a woman, right? So that means that we as women are shifting. Nothing in this world changes without having a domino effect or an impact, whether direct or indirect, on everything else in the same world, right? We're all interconnected. So, like I talked about, people kind of are resistant to change. But, you know, people are malleable. People can adapt. And I easily adapt to my environment. I know how to. But would I prefer a female-led relationship? I've been in one. And so let me say this, because I didn't mention this in my previous video. I've dominated. I've been the dominant person in a relationship. It has its benefits, right? I felt like, okay, being in control, in every aspect of the word, of the sense of control, right? In a relationship. And that was my longest relationship I was in. 5 years prior to my last relationship. that ended December 2017, which was a 3-year-long relationship. The 5-year-long relationship was the one where I was dominant. And we remained friends for a very long time. And yes, it could give you a sense of security knowing that, okay, you control things, right? But that shit is fucking tiresome. It's annoying. And it made me grow kind of bitter and resentful towards him. Because I'm like, damn, you just let me run over you. Like, he literally became a doormat. And I couldn't respect him. So that relationship had run its course. Now, it worked. When I say it worked, it worked. It was functional. We lived together. He paid the bills. But his check came to my bank account. Like, I control every fucking cent that he made in that sense. I control him. I told his ass what to do, right? Like, I ran that relationship. He answered to me. But that shit got played out. And so I ended that relationship in 2014. And then, hence, that's where my story, Dying to Submit, if you go to my website at danielleleach.com, towards the end of that 5-year relationship, I developed a craving, fantasies. It was just like a urge. I was just like, oh, I want to be dominated. Yo, I can't do this. That was so like, yo, we lived together, right? So just waking up and just looking at him, it was like, oh, you're so pathetic. It was just, when you get to that point, yo, just separate. I was just like, I just hated him, yo. But I loved him as a friend, right? And we remained friends, really, really good friends. Because he knows my secrets and I know his, right? And we're very transparent in communication. But yeah, I couldn't do it with him like that anymore. And I had these cravings just to be dominated. So I took to Craigslist and, you know, I found me a master. We didn't have sex, like intercourse. But if you read my autobiographical, fictional, I have to emphasize fictional for fucking political reasons. But if you read that story, you'll see the exchange, you'll see the dynamic, right? And it makes sense. Like, okay, entering into that type of master baby girl relationship makes sense after ending a fucking 5-year relationship where I just lost all respect for him. It's like, it wasn't serving me anymore. And so that was in Atlanta, and then, you know, I got bored living in Atlanta. I moved to New York City in 2014, and then that's where I met my most recent ex, who was a dom, alpha male. And that relationship lasted 3 years. We lived together in New York. I decided to move to LA to pursue my PhD. Why LA? I kind of wanted to get away from him because shit got toxic, right? I talked about this before. It got toxic, and it was, you know, physically, emotionally, psychologically abusive. But I like this shit. You know, it's just kind of weird, right? That's why I say, you know, it's not to point the finger at one particular person, because there are factors that make up a dynamic, right? And the reason why two people come together. So I'm definitely not the one to say, oh, woe is me, I'm the victim of domestic violence. And no, you know, there are aspects of myself that played into that dynamic of that type of relationship that I had with my last partner. But yeah, he followed me out to LA, you know, and we were still living together. He's paying all the bills, right? But yeah, so that relationship, right? And I realized, like, damn, that's what I like. I like that dynamic. But there's a fine line, obviously, to being dominated. That shit can get fucking tricky. I talked about this in my video yesterday I made when I was at Randall Islands Park, and I was like exploring the idea of me becoming a dom, a female dom, or whatever, dominatrix and shit. And the man, I say, it's interesting how a lot of men come to me and they say they want to be dominated. I'm like, do you really want to be dominated? Do you, like, I don't think so, right? It's a fine line. It can get dangerous, yo. It can get dangerous. So maybe that's where he is at in his relationship. It's like sometimes it's just a certain dynamic kind of runs its course, and it's just like, okay, you just like people switch cell phones. You just want to upgrade. You want to try a new cell phone. The shit is just boring. It's just like, right? Because you know there's more out there beyond that exists that you want to engage in. Or be fancied by. And so, yeah, I get it completely. But yeah, his thought about being in a female-led relationship, it just made me think, like, I could have some fun in that type of relationship, but I don't know. I guess I don't know because I'm thinking in the long run in terms of like a family, and of course, you know, I want kids. How does that play out with kids? And I know beta male energy, right? And I was talking to this musician, and he's like, he don't want kids. He answered that yesterday, and it's just us just exploring each other, right? And so, I knew that though, but I just wanted to hear him say it. I already knew. You could tell when a man like is a little different, right? Different than your traditional, right? And he's cool. He's very smart, very talented, very successful. Has a massive following on YouTube. But I get it. And he's like, he doesn't. I say, why you don't want to reproduce yourself? You're participating in self-eugenics. This is my manipulation part of me, right? That kind of came out. And he was like, oh no, for that matter, I'll do it tonight. I'm like, listen, slow down. I do like to say things to just get a response out of people, just to see where a person's head at, right? Where their headspace is at. And so he said, no, it's really about not really wanting to child rear, to raise children. It makes sense, so it goes with his character. He is a submissive male, and he made it clear that he wants to be dominated. He has never been in a relationship where a woman has taken full control, and he's like, he wants that. And I wouldn't be surprised if I think he mentioned strap-on. I have to go back and read my text, but yeah, I think he mentioned the part of his fantasy is, the woman putting on the strap-on. Yeah. And so when he mentioned that early in our text, I asked him, because I asked men this, when I get kind of inclination, like, okay, that a man may be bisexual, go both ways, like, I'll just put it out there. I asked, I'm very direct, and I asked, are you bisexual, you have an interest, in being with a man sexually, and then it's like, oh no, and the way he said it, like, trying to prove himself, like, I never had he said motivation, right? And I pay attention to people's choice of words. He's like, I never had a motivation to engage in sexual activities with a man. And he said something else, I forget exactly. But basically, right, him saying his choice of word of motivation. All right, whatever. Motivation, we know, is a state of mind that can change, right? It's not set in stone. People can be motivated to do something one day and not motivated to the next. So for him to even use that word motivation goes to show that can change. You haven't had the motivation. Yeah, you probably don't have motivation now in the context of this conversation because you want to be perceived in a certain light, right? But that can change fucking after we end this conversation. Then all of a sudden, you got the motivation to do it. Like, whatever, yo. Anyway. But yeah, thinking about him is just like, yeah. It could be cool, right? And I'm pretty sure there are a lot of things that I can get met by being in a female-led relationship with a male who wants to submit. But then it's just like, what about kids? And I don't know. Maybe it's just me restructuring my perspective, right? Because what we think, oftentimes we have these like perceptions of what something is. What it means to be submissive, what it means to be dominant. And then it's not really that black and white though, right? Because what you're thinking that, okay, you're being submissive, but what you're really doing is like you're being in control. It's really a form of control when a woman submits. When she's being told what to do, like she's galvanizing a lot of that power of a man. The man thinks he's in control, he has power, but really she has the power, or the submissive has the power, shall I say, right? In that. I've talked about this before. I've seen it play out too, yo. And because I like, cult life. There's something fascinating about like studying cults, right? And there's a wave of cults that are popping up. One cult I follow is Carbonation. They are identified as a cult. He admitted he's a cult, but then he kind of goes back and forth and uses cult and tribe interchangeably, right? But yeah, I do follow Carbonation. I support them, and I like him as a person. I like what he stands for. I like his idea, his concept. But even just like analyzing that situation, that dynamic, right? And he thinks he's in control of those women. Men fail to realize though, like, who really holds the power? Because it's just interesting to see, right? Like, he has like, okay, the way things gotta be done. It gotta be done a certain kind of way. And these women, they are submitting. They're obliging to his demands, his requests, right? But the moment that they do something different, they step outside of his guidelines, his rules, his order, his dominance, right? It affects his state of mind. It affects his emotion. So who is really in control? The person giving the orders, telling the submissive what to do, or the submissive who is agreeing to do these things, right? No, the submissive is in control. Because the moment that she doesn't, like, and I see it play out where they do it. It's he has multiple wives, right? And the moment, he has one wife that she tests him. But he's not going to let her go, right? Even though he's obsessed, he loves control, right? He's not going to like let her go because he loves her, like, because she's already established that bond with him and submitting to him, right? So she kind of has him like in the cusp of her hand. And I noticed like the moment like she does something that is not in agreement with what he wants, it can be the slightest, smallest thing, right? For example, he has this thing where when he's live and he's like giving his downloads and speaking to people, right, or teaching, lecturing people, right? While he's doing that, he has an expectation of his wives to give him their undivided attention, right, and to sit there and just be watching him, right? And so while he was live, like he pointed out that there's one particular wife, she got distracted and got on her phone and she was doing something else, and he was like, "What are you doing? Why are you on your phone?" So just saying that, like, that's an example, right? But this happens often, and like to see how he quickly gets triggered, right? And when a person, like, she's observing, she's in this relationship with him, and I think sometimes people think that these women become like bimbos and they just don't have a mind and they don't know what's happening. No, women are very, come on, give us credit as women. We're very like well aware. We're very smart, wise people. That's people in general though. Come on, like we're wise creatures, right? So she knows that of the power that she has, and that her disobedience, so to speak, triggers emotions within him. And there's this saying that goes, he who angers you controls you. If you could change a person's cognition or emotion, you're the one in control. And she manipulates him in that way. So who is really in control? If she knows that she has the power to change his emotion, to make him angry, to make him upset, to trigger him, to react, which he reacts a lot. This motherfucker is highly emotionally reactive, yo. And then she also has the ability to cuddle him, to make him feel powerful as a man, to make him feel esteemed and in control. Because she knows what it takes to do both, right? To get him off his throne, so to speak, and to put him back on his throne. She knows what it takes. She has the ability to do both. So who is really in control, right? The submissive or the dom in that situation? Especially when you're talking about doms who are driven by a lack of security. And that's why it's important for men, or even women, but men especially, who take on that dominant role to know themselves, right? And why are they being led to want to dominate a woman and have this amount of control over not just one woman, but multiple women? Oftentimes it does come from a lack, right? A fractured ego, insecurity. And if you're doing this out of insecurity, women can pick up on those insecurities that you have and manipulate it, play around with that shit, yo. Alright, going forward. Positively, after watching your video, I went and spoke with my girlfriend and acknowledged the importance for her to express her needs and desires and wants on all levels. If you married, so are you like cuckolding? Are you saying me? I'm not married. And I don't have an interest in cuckolding, but I am addressing an email that I received from a person that lives in the UK. And we're dissecting his situation. So that's what this video is about. And it is a part 2. There's a part 1 that I made yesterday. Alright, going back. Let's stay focused. Positively, after watching your video, I went and spoke with my girlfriend and acknowledged the importance for her to express her needs and desires and wants on all levels. I would love to hear what that conversation went like. This wasn't quite a watershed moment, as I have previously made such comments to her, and she was a bit dismissive of me. Let me break this down, right? Because for him to say this wasn't a watershed moment, meaning like a major turning point in their relationship, did you expect it to be a major turning point? Given that you say you've already expressed that to her, right? Because I suggested that it will be helpful for him, in order to usher in this conversation about what he wants, for him to explore what it is that she wants or what is lacking, right? And it's no figure, right? It's no surprise that it wasn't a watershed moment, right? And she didn't take advantage of this opportunity necessarily, because she knows it's some bullshit. It's bullshit. Like, think about it now. Let's think of it's bullshit. Are you coming to her saying, oh, I want you to express your needs and your desires, and are you, like, that's why I want to know, what did you say to her? What were the words that you said to her, right? But you're saying, you're giving like a summation or paraphrasing what happened, right? Saying that you gave her the floor and for her to express her. But going back to who she is, that's not who she is anyway. So I already mentioned that, of course, it's going to be difficult for her to do that. It's like pulling teeth. I already gave a premonition to that, to say that in my previous video, that she was not going to do that. She's like pulling teeth. When that, working with that kind of culture, remember I said that, and that I have clients that are like that, that have difficulty expressing their emotions because they weren't reared in that kind of environment where it was reinforced that it was okay and safe for them to do so, right? People are only usually expressive of their internal state, right, and sharing what it is that they feel on the inside, apart from good emotions, right? Anyone can say, oh, I'm happy, yay, I'm having a good time, when they are having a good time, because that's more socially acceptable, right, so to speak. Versus when a person feels negative emotions, right? Hurt, sadness, disagreement, hatred, resentment, pain, like, but they're less likely to express that, especially when they don't feel safe. And that's kind of sad. You know, you talked about you having like this type of relationship with women where, you know, you're compassionate and you like to talk about things that they're interested in, but is there true intimacy there? She doesn't, like, after 10 years, she doesn't feel safe to even share with you when you know there's something there. There's something there that she is keeping from you that she hasn't really articulated herself. But it makes sense though. It's like, on to her defense, why? Let's say she had the courage or felt safe enough to take advantage of that moment of you going to her and her expressing her needs and desires and whatever the fuck whatever is going on in her mind, right? It's like, why? What is the point? And it also makes me think what is going on in her mind for her to, you say she dismissed it. You've done this before and she's dismissed you. I don't think she can take you seriously though. It's like, seriously? Because considering the context of, if you've done this before, what was the context in what led you to do this, right? What happened? Because oftentimes when men come with this approach, they done something wrong. I know, out of experience and just observation. And then she knows your history, right? People don't forget. You say that you reconcile. In your mind, you reconcile, but was it a reconciliation for her? Probably not. Like, yo, men, y'all see things from y'all perspective, but y'all have no idea what's going on in a woman's existence. And I've had male clients, you know, talk about their issues with their female partner. And that usually is like the main focus of the fucking therapy, right? And they mention, of course, they cheated. That's just a common thing. They cheated on their female partner. Oh, she doesn't trust me. She keeps bringing this up. This happened last year, but she keeps bringing it up. And I'm just so annoyed. And it's just getting in the way of us getting past that and really building intimacy. And they just don't get it. Right? That's not how women work. That's not how the mind works. She could say, okay, I forgive you with her mouth, right? But it doesn't take away from the memory. It doesn't take away from the triggers that you helped to create from that betrayal, from that experience, right? That experience has had an impact on her on a psychological, emotional, even biological level, because memory is encoded in our DNA, right? So people say, oh, they forgive, they won't forget. It's just like, yeah. And they say, oh, well, part of forgiveness is forgetting. Come on, is that human nature to forget? People don't really forget. They may forget certain details of an event, especially if it's traumatic, because that's out of their own adaptation, which they really have no control over, forgetting those details of certain traumatic events. But people, come on, why should she forget that? She needs to remember that because what you forget is bound to repeat itself, right? History repeats itself. So, she needs to remember that out of her own protection of what he did to her, right? Talking about male clients I've had, and like, oh, she keep bringing it up. You know, that happened then so many years ago, but she keep bringing it up. Some women bring it up and some women don't, but their mind brings it up, but they don't say it. So they're still dealing with that, right? So when you come to her and be like, oh, like, you acknowledge the importance for her to express her needs and desires and wants on all levels, That's not who she is. That's not what she's used to doing anyway, to expressing that. Because she hasn't been seen in that way growing up, right? Or in her relationship with you. You're asking her to do something that's not even like what she is accustomed to doing, right? So how can you expect her to do something different if she's not even accustomed to doing that in the first place? And then this is some random ass conversation you're just popping up on her. She's probably confused, like, what is the fucking context of this? What is leading you to even bring this shit up anyway? Like, so random. Come on now. She don't take you seriously. Why should she take you seriously in this? Nothing is gonna change. Probably what she's thinking. Nothing's gonna change. Even if I was to express my needs and desires and wants, or places where my needs are not being met, she knows that she can't trust you to meet her in that respect. Right? Why would she spend the time and energy to say, oh, this is what I want and this is what I need, and for what if you're not going to meet her? Nothing is going to change. You're going to continue doing what you want to do anyway. So that conversation is pointless in her mind. That's why she's a bit dismissive. To point. You think a woman, right, who has unmet needs in a relationship, and her partner, who she trusts to be a man of his word, an honorable man. Not to say you're not. I'm just saying though, right? She trusts that he's a man of his word. Do you really think that a woman has unmet needs, right? Given that she is comfortable expressing herself, and a man, her partner, comes to her and says, baby, is there anything I can do to make things better? Is there anything, what are your desires? If he comes to her, you think that she's going to be dismissive, or do you think she's going to have a conversation with him about that? See, there are different types of women out there. Women who have been muted, which she has, she's not going to say, even though there is. And for her to express her needs, and maybe that's a different, I don't say wrong, but that's not an effective way to get to the root of the problem, right? By asking her to express her needs, because there's just some people who are not good at saying what it is they need or asking for help. There's just some people that they don't do that. They don't ask for help. Even if the person is coming to them and asking them, can I help you? Some people aren't good at expressing their needs. They're just not, or desires. So you have to come at it from a different angle. And I would think by 10 years in, and I know we're over 2 hours, I don't really care. But I would think 10 years into a relationship, you would know what you don't know her needs. Think about that now. Think about that. I know communication is important, right? You can't always assume, right, what a person wants or needs. So that's the purpose of communication. People should be able to articulate what is a need. But come on now. It's like after 10 years, you coming to me asking me what my desires and express my needs. Like, you don't know me by now? What I need? Like, something is wrong with that. Seems like just the issue of trust keeps popping up. Trust. There's a lack of trust here. I think I will concentrate, he says, and focus less on my sexual needs and instead trying to empower her and feed some of her desires. So you know where her desires are without her even having to articulate it, right? Yeah, just do that. Recognizing that this relationship isn't all about my need to orgasm, less words, more act. Yeah, he knows. Like, come on, this is a very astute man. He knows what's up. He knows. You know, come on. That's what makes this exchange so fun. Because you know yourself and you don't take offense to my words because what I'm saying, you already know. Right? So it's not a threat because you already know. With that being said, he says, thanks for your time. I know that I have given far too much detail. The intention is to be relatively transparent to you, but anonymous to the audience in terms of my identity, of course. And he says, enjoy your weekend. Happy face. Oh, I will, okay? Don't think about me. I'm going to enjoy myself. Then he says, thanks. He says his name, and then between me and you, yes, that is my real name, and just for your own information, I am a criminal defense attorney. Okay, I already addressed that. Why would that be significant or to differentiate between human rights versus defense is because you want to toot your horn and like, oh, I make more money. I would assume that defense attorneys make more money than human rights attorneys, whatever. P.S. I am not expecting a critique of this information as I'm sure that you are very busy, but it's essentially cathartic to express my thoughts. Yes, it is very cathartic. You get it. Thank you for the opportunity. Yes. I'm going to grab me some food, and I'm curious to hear what you guys think. I don't know if there'll be a part 3, but if he sends another email addressing what I've said, maybe he wants to, we can do it. As far as like him being concerned about time, I don't know if you guys are aware, but I just finished a very intense pre-doc internship. So PhD programs in clinical psychology here in the U.S. are typically 5 years. Very intense program, very rigorous training that consists of course, coursework, and for my program, 3 practicums, 3 800-hour practicums that are unpaid. Basically, it gives you the opportunity to get clinical training in a variety of settings. And then you have your 5th year internship. This is not to include your dissertation. I haven't talked about the dissertation. That's part of it too. That's like a 2-year long process. And then the 5th year pre-doc internship. And the internship is full-time and is paid. And that is very involved and intense. And I just completed mine where I was met with the responsibility of conducting 4 psychological evaluations per week. And each psychological evaluation required a report, a written report that has to meet certain guidelines and format, right? On top of that, I also had a caseload of psychotherapy clients that I would see on a weekly basis. 12 of them. So that has come to an end, which means I graduated, but it's not over. So I have a postdoc, which I've already accepted the offer. It's full-time, and I'm just waiting because I'm not starting yet. I'll be starting probably in a month. So I'm writing out my vacation, which I need, right? My upcoming supervisor suggested, it's good to take a break, right, in between the pre-doc and the postdoc. And then I'll be getting licensed. So this time, around this time next year, I will be a fully licensed psychologist, working under my own license, not someone else's. So this is like the final step of my training to become a clinical psychologist. And so, yeah, I have time. I'm like what do you call this, summer break, I guess you can call it, before I began my postdoc. So yeah, I'm cool. I'm chilling. And I thought about like things to do with my time. You know, of course I like taking nature walks, but I may kind of revisit my writing, my unfinished manuscripts. I have multiple. So yeah, I think I'm gonna do that. Go to the library and finish those. But in the meantime, feel free, you guys. If you have a scenario, you have a topic of interest you want me to address, let's do this. I will try to work on being more concise, right? But y'all should see by now how my mind works, right? That's just how it works. But I'll try. We'll see how it goes. And I think I've done a pretty good job in previous videos where I've addressed certain topics in fucking 20 minutes, 30 minutes, less than an hour. But let's admit that email, it was kind of lengthy, and he said some things that were worth delving into, and you can look at from many different perspectives, and so I owe that to him. But I love this exchange, and I'm about to go grab me some food. I'll catch you guys in the next one, okay? Love you guys.